All right. Totally unannounced stream that I expect no one will show up for. That's totally okay. I'm really here to talk about BlizzCon and World of Warcraft and thoughts. I always tend to do this, pop in and give those. So, if you've ever watched my content or, if you just want to hear what I have to think, this is definitely the place to be. And hopefully some people will check this out as a VOD later on. And we'll just kind of see what's up. So just real quickly, I want to make sure you know where I stand on this. I've been following World of Warcraft stuff, even though I haven't been making content and even though I haven't been playing the game. So that's something to kind of start with here. I have not been playing World of Warcraft. I have not been playing World of Warcraft for months and months and months. Because I just have been frustrated with many of the things that World of Warcraft has been doing. I've been frustrated with feeling like the type of content that I like to create and the type of content that I like to play in game has been getting a back seat. A lot of that, there were positive steps taken in Dragonflight, but not enough, in my opinion, not enough. And it made me feel like I didn't really have a part or a space in this game, and therefore for me it just wasn't very fun. So it wasn't fun. I stopped playing. If I'm not playing, can't really make content. So I haven't been making content for World of Warcraft, but I've still been following things as much as I can, watching some Bellular, some Asmongold, checking some news here and there, keeping up with the articles, stuff that I always do with World of Warcraft because it is near and dear to my heart, even if I don't currently enjoy playing it. So obviously, I tuned into BlizzCon, even though Blizzard has taken a lot of steps, had a lot of misses, in my opinion, here recently. And I have to say, I went into BlizzCon not expecting much. Didn't expect much. I was very disappointed by Overwatch 2 with the absence of PvE content. So basically don't care about that game anymore. Diablo beat the campaign, played a little bit further than that, was very let down by what Diablo has going on post-campaign and in the seasons. So not really interested in that. Quit Hearthstone quite a bit ago. Just it's ridiculously over monetized and balance is out of control. So quit that as well. Never played StarCraft, and they kind of killed that game anyway. They killed HOTS. There just hasn't been a reason for me to play anything Blizzard related in a long while, including World of Warcraft. So I went in with very low expectations, and I think Hearthstone, Diablo, Overwatch, they met my very low expectations, and I was not impressed. World of Warcraft, on the other hand, was an entirely different story. And I have to say, after watching the opening ceremony, after watching the announcements, after watching, Chris Metzen come out on stage and talk about the story, I was like, oh, this sounds like some pretty good stuff. And then after watching the deep dive today, I have to say that on a personal level, I feel like Blizzard, if they pull off everything that they're talking about with the War Within expansion, is addressing 90% of the issues that I have with the game. There's a couple that they're not touching on yet, but the vast majority of them, they're hitting on. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to get on stream, whether people watch, whether people don't, and I wanted to give my thoughts on everything that was announced at BlizzCon. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit up, I got Wowhead, I got the expansion site pulled up, I got all this stuff. I'm going to share the screen and just talk about my thoughts on everything that was announced, and hope that, maybe some people come along and want to chat, or if not, then you'll check this out in the VOD. So that's enough of me rambling. I just wanted to make sure that I gave you context for where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this stuff. So we're going to switch on over here. I got the World of Warcraft up here. So the War Within, this was the expansion that was announced, and we're going to get into this a lot, but I want to go back in time and just kind of touch base from what we got in the beginning here, what we kind of got going in. So, they called out Chris Metzen on stage, and I was like, they needed this. They needed Chris Metzen to come out and just be like Warcraft again. There's a lot of things that I think system-wise Dragonflight did really well, but I also do definitely feel like Dragonflight doesn't feel like World of Warcraft. And I think it's kind of easy to tell. I think it's easy to tell. There's a certain feeling, at least as a veteran of World of Warcraft, that I get when watching something, watching a trailer, watching a cinematic, reading something in game that goes Warcraft. And like most of what I was seeing with Dragonflight was like not that. And so it was good to have Chris Metzen come out and just kind of say, hey, we're getting back to it. We're getting back to the stuff that y'all are interested in. So they pulled a Bungie here in a sense, and they announced the next 3 upcoming World of Warcraft expansions. Now, they said that they're going to try to get them out to us a little bit faster than usual. My understanding is that this saga will end by 2030, and we got about 6, 7 years left. So that's still about 2 years per expansion, roughly. I don't know if they're going to plan on bringing them out a little bit faster than that or not. But it's cool that they announced this. I think they needed to do that. They needed to tell us long term, where's this story going? Because right now it's been kind of like, if you think about it, we went from Legion, which was the culmination of fighting this, the demons and everything from the Burning Crusade and even further back. And that was epic and, just really, really interesting. Then we moved to Battle for Azeroth, which was a little bit weird, but still kind of Warcrafty in a sense, where it felt like they just kind of breezed over the old gods, right? The old gods are gone. It's like, oh, that should have been a whole expansion, right? And then we went into Shadowlands, which is where initially we were kind of like, huh? Why? And, I was interested in it, but where it ended up, oh man, I really feel like the back half of BFA was where it started to go a little off the tracks. And then Shadowlands, it went way off the tracks. And then Dragonflight, it was like, look, we're going to come back to Azeroth, but this still doesn't feel like World of Warcraft. So what did they announce, right? They announced the next 3 expansions, World of Warcraft, The War Within, WoW Midnight, and WoW The Last Titan. So they told us a little bit about all this stuff. So we got a lot of details about War Within, which we'll talk about here soon. But they said the World of Warcraft Midnight is getting an expansion where we go back to Northrend. That's interesting. It makes me wonder if they're going to do like a world revamp of Northrend in combination with this, or if we're going to go, initially when they said we're going to go back to the old world, I was like thinking back in time, but then I realized they just meant we're going to go back to the old world. Like essentially to me, it kind of sounds like they're going to reuse the landmass that is already there. Maybe they'll overhaul the whole thing for the expansion instead of rebuilding brand new zones and stuff like that. So I actually know Midnight was Quel'Thalas. Midnight was Quel'Thalas is where we were going. So over, Eastern Kingdoms kind of area, I believe. So it makes me think that they're going to use that section a lot and maybe just kind of update it to modern graphics, which sounds pretty cool. And this is going to be the big Void expansion that we've been talking about and wondering. Every time a new expansion is going to come out, we go, is it going to be the Void one? Is it going to be the Void one? This one is going to be the Void one. Now, whether or not it's going to involve any of the old gods we know and love, I don't know. Metzen made it sound like the old gods are dead. They're gone. Xalatath essentially has taken their place. So, interesting story beats to me. That's totally fine. It sounds Warcrafty enough. Then we're going to move into The Last Titan, where we go back to Northrend. And again, that makes me think they're going to reuse that landmass, and they're going to maybe give it a visual overhaul or update. I think that could be really cool. That could be pretty fun. And that is where we're going to find out all the stuff about the Titans that we've been wondering, apparently. Metzen said we're going to question everything we know about, everything we think we know about the Titans. And those are all perfectly fine, interesting story beats, I think. I'm like very tightened out in a sense. I would love to be like The Last Titan, and it's like, for real, now we're going to move on to new stuff. That would be great. So it was cool to get the next 3 expansions, and then we got a lot of details about the War Within, and that's really what I want to talk about is what they're doing with the War Within, because like I said, big deal for me. I think they are addressing 90% of the issues that I currently have with the game, and 90% of the reasons that I've not been having fun in WoW, and that I have quit and quit and quit again, because every time I get in new expansion, fun stuff, and I hit this certain point where I'm just like, all right, well, I like playing WoW, but I don't feel like there's a place for me when it comes to playing WoW at a in-game progression higher level, or as someone who plays a lot of alts. And you probably know where a lot of this conversation is going, but those are the main reasons that I have stopped playing WoW every single time. It's been the frustration with how alts are handled. It's been the frustration with the fact that, like, as someone who wants to play a lot and get better and be challenged, the only routes that I have for that are PvP, dungeons, or raids, and I just don't care about any of those anymore. I just don't. I spent years and years and years, I mean, hardcore dungeoning, like, for multiple expansions. I ran a guild where all we did was run dungeons, like pre-Mythic. You know, it would have been nice if maybe Mythic era was when I did the dungeon thing, but I'm talking about Classic, TBC, and Lich King. I ran a guild where that's what we did. We ran dungeons like non-stop, multiple dungeons a day, tons of dungeons a week, and I'm dungeoned out. Also, during that time, I was raiding hardcore, and I also came back in different expansions, Warlords of Draenor and some different ones like that, and raided with guilds, and it's like I'm just raided out. And then PvP, like, I dabbled in a little bit of PvP, but it's just not my thing, right? So all that stuff, it's not that, like, it's not good content or enjoyable, but it's just not. I've done it. You know, they mentioned we're coming up on 20 years of World of Warcraft, right? There's only so many times you could do these things over and over and over again, unless they're really just your thing, and they don't happen to be my thing. So anyway, long rant and ramble there, but that's kind of what this stream's going to be. All right, so War Within, next World of Warcraft expansion. This cinematic, holy crap, this cinematic was great. I mean, the visuals, amazing. Anduin's, like, facial expressions, the acting, the voice acting, like, everything for this in terms of the quality of this cinematic was fantastic. Like, I can't believe it was great. Now, the content of the cinematic itself, it was okay. It's nice to see Thrall come back. You know, it's nice to see, you know, Anduin, like, in his emo phase. You know, maybe he'll come out of the emo phase. I don't know. Who knows? I think it's pretty obvious that, like, Azeroth or something similar is calling out to everybody. The big sword, I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if the, you know, Sargeras' sword is going to tie into this expansion, or if it's, like, going to be a progressive sort of story beat throughout the expansion and become more of a large factor in, like, Midnight or The Last Titan. I'm not really sure. But either way, cinematic quality, really good. Content, decent. All right, so Midnight, we didn't get a lot of details about that. Forces of the Void invading Azeroth to try to plunge the light out of the Sunwell, and there's going to be a focus on unifying elven tribes. So, you know, we got to see more. I think it's an interesting enough story beat. Like, good enough. And then we got The Last Titan expansion, going to be the 12th WoW expansion. So again, this one, we're going to go back to Northrend and Ulduar, witness the return of the Titans to Azeroth, vast conspiracy, stretched throughout the history of the world, blah, blah, blah. I think this is going to be really interesting. And like I said, I'm really tightened out, so I hope this just kind of ends things with the Titans. All right, so our next thing here, warbands. We're going to come back and talk about these. I'm going to catch any other little points before we really get into the details of this next expansion. All right, so there's an upcoming pre-order, the Algarian Griffin mount. So this is kind of a, my understanding is it's a customizable Griffin, like a Storm Griffin. It looks pretty cool. Honestly, it looks pretty dope. And it's obviously going to be a dragon riding or dynamic flight kind of mount here. So overall, I think it looks pretty solid for a pre-order bonus. Let's see. What else do we have? I think we're getting... Okay, so talking about the pre-order and stuff. So there's the Epic Edition. This is a $90 edition. We'll check this out right here. I wanted to mention this. I don't think this is a huge deal, but if we come down here and we check out the pre-order editions for the War Within, you have the base edition for 50, heroic for 70, and the epic for 90, right? So base edition is going to get you the expansion, Dragonflight, and everything up to Dragonflight, a enhanced level 70 character boost, and 500 Trader's Tender. Trader's Tender is something that I have not spoken about on the channel, but I think it's kind of bullshit. That's just me. You can get the Heroic Edition, and with that, you're going to get that pre-order Storm Rider mount that's got customization options and all that, and then you're going to get a upgradable Storm Rider's Attire Transmog set. Do I think that's worth an extra $20? No, not really. I don't. Oh, and you get more tendies. So I guess that's a thing. Is that worth $20? I don't think so. And then you get the Epic Edition here. So you get everything in the previous ones. You get beta access to the War Within, guaranteed. I think that's a pretty sweet perk. I think it makes sense for them to offer this as a monetary perk within the pre-purchase. I mean, it's kind of what players have been asking for forever. I've supported your game. I pre-ordered. How come I didn't get access? Okay, well, now you get access with the War Within. So I think that's rock solid. You get 30 days of game time, which is worth 15 or so bucks in and of itself. You get a pet, a toy, and a Hearthstone effect. And then you also get 3 days of early access to the War Within. So do I think all that is worth $20 over the Heroic Edition? Yes, I do. Do I think that the Heroic Edition is worth the upgrade over the base edition? No. So all in all, I think the base edition is worth the value. I think the Heroic Edition is kind of dog shit, honestly. And I think like if you're going to spend more money, you might as well just get the Epic Edition for 90. Like you might as well. Like beta access to me is worth enough as a potential content creator for the War Within. You know, that's pretty solid, even if I have other ways to potentially get in and be able to play the beta. Like, guaranteed is nice, too. The 30 days of game time, you know, solid $15 there. And, I mean, you get a pet, toy, Hearthstone, you get the transmog, you get the mount, all that kind of good stuff. Now, I know a lot of people are up in arms over the 3 days of early access to the War Within. I don't give a shit about this at all, and I don't think it's a big deal. I know a lot of people are of the mind that like, oh, this is going to affect the race for world first and blah, 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 blah. No, it's not. Like, no, it's not. Because anybody who's racing for world first is going to get this. They're going to have this. Like, if you're racing for world first and you can't bump $20, like, to get the best version of the WoW pre-order, like, are you even serious about it? I mean, it staggers the server load between people that have pre-ordered and people that haven't. Like I said, anyone who's serious about WoW is going to have this anyway. And at the end of the day, like 3 days, like, is that really going to matter after 4 months, 3 months? No, it's not. It's not. It didn't matter for Diablo 4. It's not going to matter for this. Do I think on principle they should sell early access as part of a pre-order? No. But do I think it's the end of the world that it's in here? No, I don't. I think it's fine. It's fine. So anyway, that is the info on the pre-order bonuses and all that kind of good stuff. So let's see. This is the Storm Rider mount customization preview. So we got armor colors. We got cheeks. Different colors that you can make the Storm Rider mount, snout, all this kind of stuff. So, it's got Dragon Rider style customizations, which is pretty cool. It's a cool mount anyway. I think it looks pretty nice. But it's cool that it has all the extra customizations too. And then here is the Storm Rider mount as well. So we got some Some visuals here. Some little lightning effects. You know, so that's fine. Get a little armor set too. That's cool. All right, so I think that, okay, the alpha begins in spring 2024, which means we probably have beta sometime in summer or fall at the most. And was there anything else? Okay, the Drakthir Soar is going to be full dragon riding in patch 10.2.5. Good, it should be. It's so stupid to soar and then not be able to dragon ride. So that's a good addition. Again, the World Soul Saga is set to conclude before 2030. Again, that still puts us at about, 2 years in expansion, which is what we were expecting. But they did say that they were going to try to get stuff to us a little bit faster, so we'll see. Also, dynamic flying is coming for the Druid Flight Form with the War Within. Again, this one's not in 10.2.5, but with the actual expansion. The reason for that is because dragon flying is becoming dynamic flying. It's becoming the standard, the baseline flying experience for World of Warcraft. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's good to know that they're trying to cover all their bases here with the Drakthir and the Druid Flight Forms. All right, so let's get in and talk about the War Within, the expansion here, because this is where I feel like they addressed 90% of the issues I have with the game. So, first off, kicking things off with this story here. So, as far as the story goes, interesting enough. It's interesting enough. Not incredibly thrilling to me, but it's fine, right? At this point, I don't count on WoW's story to carry me through whether or not I want to play the game. It definitely has an influence, but it's not the end-all be-all for me. So with the War Within, basically, we are going to journey through never-before-seen subterranean worlds. We're going to go down into Azeroth itself, essentially. And we're going to have 4 different zones. So we're going to have the Isle of Dorn, which is the one you kind of start in. And this one is not below ground within the earth. This is an island where the Earthen live. So it says, off the western shores of Pandaria, home to the Earthen. Their capital city, Dornegal, is going to be our new capital city for the expansion. Then we're going to go down into the Ringing Deeps. This is a gigantic cavern. It's home of the machine speakers, which we'll talk about later. And this has kind of like a forge vibe, but they still have these areas in the zone where there's going to be like pockets, holes or whatever that open up to the outer, the surface of Azeroth and have like areas of life and stuff. So it's not just one big mechanical forge. We're going to have Hollowfall, which is the next layer down, where it's a massive cavern and it's lit by this crystal. So between this crystal and everything else going on, it's not going to look like a cave underground. It's going to look well lit and stuff like that. And there's also some weird void stuff going on with the crystal. So pretty cool. And then the last zone is going to be Aj-Kahet, which is basically the next tier down, and it's a Nerubian society, a Nerubian city, where currently Xalatath is down there doing void stuff with the Nerubians. So all in all, I think these zones look pretty cool. Concepts look pretty cool. I like that we're getting Nerubians again. Nerubians, great enemy, cool faction. Definitely a World of Warcraft throwback, so I think that's all pretty positive. So that is the story and the world. So let me get into the features. We'll touch on these real quick, and then we'll dive into them a little bit more. So we're going to have Delves, which are a new end-game pillar. So this addresses a huge issue for me. Warbands also addresses a huge issue for me. Hero talents are cool, but I'm only whelmed by them. They're not underwhelming. They're not overwhelming. They're just... Hero talents are pretty mid to me, and we'll talk about why. We got the Earthen, which is a new playable allied race. Honestly, I think this is incredibly boring. It's just reskinned dwarves, and we already have reskinned dwarves through the Dark Iron, so I really feel like they could have done something better, but thematically this fits. It's fine. Dynamic flying, I think this is a good move, especially with the details we'll talk about later. But again, dynamic flying is the same as dragon riding, but it's just renamed because it's going to be the new default for flying, and you're going to be able to fly like this in old zones. We'll talk more about this too. And there's, 8 dungeons in a raid. 4 zones, 8 dungeons in a raid. That's the WoW formula. It's all there. Again, so let's get in and talk about some of these in detail and why I think these are such a big deal for a player like me. Maybe not for all WoW players, but definitely a player like me. So we're going to talk about the World of Warcraft Warband. And I think this is not going to be the best post to look at here. So here we go. Account-wide progression with warbands. And I think we're going to have, let me see. There's a deep dive panel recap here. All right, so let's talk warbands. Okay, so the general thing with warbands is account-wide everything. Okay, here's what warbands really are, and here's the reason why I think that they address so many issues that I have with the game. I am someone, if you can't tell from the content I've created in the past, whether that's videos, live streams, etc., I am someone who plays every class in the game, every single class. Not all of them equally, but I play all of them, and I have a ton of alts. And one of the things that has frustrated me about World of Warcraft is that so much of the game is tied to your character, not your account. Okay, one of the reasons that I really enjoyed playing Final Fantasy XIV is because on Final Fantasy XIV, you make a character, and then that character can change their job, which is the equivalent of a class in World of Warcraft. So imagine if you made a character in World of Warcraft, and you could change your class at any time on that one character, play all the classes in the game, experience all the content, all the spells, all the abilities. What does that mean? It means that you're on one character, so all your reputation that you get across the game, you only have to get it once. You only have to play through the story once. All these things, you only have to do them one time, and then you're done. You just get to play the other classes, the other types of gameplay as part of being your character. And in World of Warcraft, it's not like that. It has not been like that. It's been, hey, if you're playing 12 alts, fuck you. Because you have to do everything 12 times. Everything. You got to get the flight pass 12 times. You got to grind the renown 12 times. You got to grind the rep 12 times, etc., etc., etc. And it's been so frustrating as somebody who wants to play all these different classes because I like variety and I like making content about all the different classes, to have to log on and be like, well, I can't do this thing on this character because I haven't played this character as much. So even though I spent hours and hours and hours getting this on my warrior, I got to come over here. And before I can do anything fun, I got to spend the same hours and hours and hours doing this on this character and then repeat for every single alt. So what warbands are is they're a shift in Blizzard perspective away from looking at character-based progression and instead focused on player-based progression or account-based progression. And this is addressing exactly the issue that I just talked about. So what do warbands mean in reality? So there's several features that they're adding in to create a more alt-friendly experience and really focus on the player and the efforts the player has made versus the efforts made with a single character. So first off, there's a warband bank. So this is an account-wide bank that's shared between all of your characters on a Battle.net account. And with each one of these things that we talk about, I want to point out the workaround that I've created or the frustration I've had that made me quit the game. So what is my workaround right now for a warband bank? I have an alliance and a horde guild that I just use to store items in. So I mail everything to one character and I put it all in the bank. And then when I want to get something out of it, I log into that character and look through the bank. Oh, do I have that? Get it out, send it to the character I want it on. So I have a workaround for this that it's frustrating and annoying. So coming along and creating this warband bank that's just a shared bank for your account, amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to say that a lot in this video. Thank you so much for creating this bank, because not only can you store items in this bank for your entire account, there's a couple of other things that are happening with this bank as well. So one, you can put reagents into the bank. So you can put your crafting materials into this bank, and then you're able to craft from that bank on any character using the materials that are in there. So if you're playing alts and you have 3 herbalists and you go around, you don't have to mail stuff to everybody. You can just go in, dump all your herbing mats from all 3 characters into this bank, and then your alchemist or whatever character can just log on. It's all in the bank, and they can just craft with this stuff. Fantastic. So it's great. It's such a good feature. Then also, they're creating what are called warbound items, which is bonus personal loot that you get that drop at a lower item level than what you are expected to get. But you can put them into your warband bank, and then you can pull them out and use them on a different character, right? So it's basically a countdown gear that you're going to get that'll drop at an item level lower than what you would want to get on the character you're playing on, but that might be a good hand-me-down or a way to boost up a alt character that's lower level than your current one you're playing. But something, again, that is fantastic here, transmog collection. Okay, so with this warband system, basically, from what it sounds like, many of the items that you find are going to drop warbound. Warbound is like soulbound, except it's for your warband. It's basically bind on account, but they're calling them warbound, right? Just like what we talked about with the lower item level stuff, but there's a transmog component to this. So what it sounds like is if you go back to a legacy raid, which is something I do all the time to collect transmog because I want to be able to make my characters look cool, and I like going back and getting the transmogs and all that stuff. What you're able to do is those items that will drop in those legacy raids, it sounds like they're going to make them so that they drop warbound. So it's not like if you go through with your mage and you get plate armor, the transmog automatically goes into your transmog collection. That would be nice if it did that. But I understand why it might not, because you still may want to trade that gear to someone, etc., etc. You could take that gear, you could throw it into your warbound bank, and then you can go over to your warrior, or you can go over to your death knight or paladin or whatever. You can grab that plate armor out of the warbound bank, equip it, and boom, it becomes transmog for your account. Now, why is that a big deal? It's a big deal because right now, that's not how things work. You go back to a legacy raid with a mage, and anything that drops that isn't cloth, any armor piece that's not cloth, tough. You sell it. You sell it because you cannot get the transmog on it because it drops soulbound to you. So you can't mail it or send it to a different character. The only thing you could do is maybe trade it to someone. So what's the workaround for this right now? Well, the workaround is that you try to go into a legacy raid and you try to bring someone to that legacy raid of every armor class. So you bring a cloth character, a mail, a leather, and a plate wearer, so that as you go through, everybody can trade everybody the pieces of gear that work for that particular character, right? Or you just run through that raid on 4 different characters that all have different armor classes, so that you can get that transmog. And this sucks. It sucks because it sucks going in and seeing drops and you're like, the only reason I am here is for transmog, and I saw 30 drops across this whole raid and only 6 of them were ones that I could use. And oh, this super cool looking transmog dropped while I was on this cloth character. Man, I really wish I would have got that for my plate character. Then you come in with the plate character and you're like, oh, there's that cloth headpiece that I was farming for on my mage, but oh, too bad. Guess I got to come back around and try to farm with the mage again a bunch, right? Or it sucks trying to group up with your friends and like everybody wants to go in as warriors or druids or something, and you're just sitting there like, well, if we all go as the same class, then we're all going to be fighting over the same transmogs, and we're all going to have a bunch of loot that doesn't apply to anybody in here, and we're literally just going back for transmogs. So, transmogs dropping as warbound items fixes all of that. It fixes all of it. So now you just get your gear. You check, okay, do I already have this in my transmog system? No? Cool. I keep it. Even if it's not for my character class that I'm playing on right now, I could drop it in my account, grab it from the appropriate alt, and then I can add it to my transmog. Awesome. If I do already have it in my collection, then I can talk to my buddies and go, hey, does anybody need this? And I could trade it to them so they could take it. Like, it fixes so many problems there. I don't know if you're going to be able to trade the warbound items like that. It'll be interesting to see if that's allowable. But either way, fantastic addition to WoW that fixes a huge frustration that I have. Because one of the main things that I like to do once I get max level is go back and do the raids from the previous expansion, solo or with a couple friends, and collect transmog. So that's an activity that right now in the current game is a huge source of frustration, and I feel like I'm wasting my time, and I'm getting all these drops that are basically worthless. They're worth like 10 gold or 20 gold if I'm lucky. So it's not even like lucrative anymore to really go back and farm these a bunch. So yeah, fantastic change. The next thing is reputations, and oh my god, my biggest complaint about alts in World of Warcraft is reputation. So this is reputation, and it'll apply to renown as well. This is my biggest complaint because I hate reputations in World of Warcraft. I understand why they're there, but I hate them. And I will do them one time on one character because I gotta unlock the good stuff. And then I get on an alt, and it's like, you want me to do this all over again? I hate this. I hate doing it. And this is one of the biggest reasons that one of the biggest frustrations for me with World of Warcraft is how so much stuff is tied to rep or renown. And if you're somebody who plays 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 characters, and you just have to go out and mindlessly grind the same shit over and over again for your rep on every character, I hate it. I hate it. It makes me quit the game every time. So now with warband reputations, the reputations in War Within are available for all your characters to access. So any rep that you get on any character contributes to an account-wide reputation ranking with that rep, with that faction. So now if you go out and you just grind it all out on one character, you switch to another character, boom, you've got it on that character too. So this is going to apply to almost all reputations from my understanding in the War Within. And then they are going to try to retroactively apply these to previous expansion reps as well, which is going to take them some time to do. They're going to start with Dragonflight and basically work their way backwards. But this is going to be huge. I'm totally fine with them starting with the current expansion and then working backwards, because current content is really where reps are going to matter the most, right? There's a little bit to the like legacy reputations that'll matter, because you can go back and you can like purchase mounts and cosmetics and stuff like that. But the most relevant place where reps serve as a roadblock normally is the current content. So I'm fine with them starting there. And again, reps and renowns, fantastic. So I am really, really looking forward to that. Next, easy win, flight paths. Once you unlock them on one character, all characters in your warband can access them. Oh my gosh, that is going to be so good for playing alts, Because one of the big frustrations is you're like, man, I had to go to this stupid place to get the stupid flight point that they put on the top of this hill somewhere, and now you want me to do it all over again. That being said, in the War Within, we are going to start with dynamic flight. The zones are designed for dynamic flight. And honestly, I didn't feel like flight paths were really an issue in Dragonflight. It'll be nice to not have to go around and collect them. It'll just be a nice quality of life thing. But I don't think that was like the end all be all. It wasn't a huge point of frustration when you had dragon riding available right from the beginning, which they did say for the War Within, we're going to have dynamic flight available right from the beginning again. That is a huge win. I had so much more fun. It felt like such a better leveling experience, in my opinion, to have dragon riding or dynamic flight available from the beginning, that I'm very happy that they're going to continue with this forward. And I hope that they continue to do this for the vast majority of their expansions coming forward, for all of them. I hope that they start going, yep, dynamic flight is going to be in from the very start of the leveling process. So we're going to design our zones with that in mind. It just feels way better to just start out being able to fly. Delves they added in. We're going to talk about these a lot, so I'm going to hold off on these. Achievements. So by default, most achievements are going to be account-wide instead of individual based on the character. That's a good move for me. Personally, I'm not someone who really cares about achievements at all, so not a big deal to me, but I think this is, again, an easy win and just a nice positive for them to have. And then they're also adding in this cool login screen. I like this a lot. So they said that basically on this login screen, it's going to have a list of all your characters from across your account. You won't have to like switch realms and servers and stuff to find your characters, but you're going to be able to pick like 4 characters from your list to be a part of your camp, I think is what they called it, like the camp characters or something like that. I forget the exact wording. But your login screen will now show like 4 of your characters that you pick, the ones you want to highlight, which is super cool. And again, just shows that change in perspective of focusing on the person behind the screen, the player, the time investment of the player, and not focusing so much on a singular character. That's great, because this is a step in the right direction to respecting the player's time. And I think that's huge. When you don't respect my time as a player, that is when you very quickly and easily lose me as a player, right? Because my time is valuable. I have many things that I could do with my time. And if I'm choosing to spend my time on your game, on your entertainment, etc., then I want a level of respect back that acknowledges that time spent. All right, so then we got hero talents. What else do we have? We got the Earthen Race. We talked about dynamic flight. There's a new battleground for PvP, which again, I'm not much of a PvPer. So, I mean, it's great that PvPers are going to have a new battleground. Also, it sounds like they're going to have an entirely deterministic way to acquire their PvP gear, which is also very good in my opinion. Interface updates, they didn't show too much of this, but they did show this screen here. I don't know if I can make it any bigger. Yeah, here we go. So this is, to me, this is actually kind of a big deal. Interface is a huge thing for me. This is showing utilization for the spell book to take up more than just that tiny little window that we normally get. So this is nice. Also, they're kind of grouping spellbook, talents, specialization, all this stuff into one window instead of having to push like 18 different windows. So I think that's great. This looks like a very rock solid upgrade here. Cross-realm guilds. So that's another good one here. Being able to be a part of a guild, even if you're not on the same realm. That is huge, because I know every time I tried to play with viewers and things like that, it was like, okay, well, if we want to be in a guild and people have to do transfers, etc., this takes that away. So I like that a lot. Now, that being said, I don't know. I haven't been following whether or not there have been updates to the cross-faction guilds to make them less weird and wonky, because they were weird and wonky the last time I checked. So hopefully they make some updates. They either have made some updates in that direction or they will be in the future, because that's still kind of an issue for me as someone who likes to play alts of different factions. That was always an issue, right? Because I told you my workaround for the bank was to have guilds. Now there's going to be the warband bank, so it kind of solves the problem for me as an alt player. But as someone who wants to play with people who also play a lot of alts on a lot of different factions, seeing that cross-faction guild stuff improve would be a pretty big deal. I think that covers almost everything except for hero talents and delves, and that's what I want to touch on next. We're going to talk about hero talents, and then we're going to end on delves, because delves is going to kind of bring us back to the main reason that I quit playing WoW every expansion. But before we get into that, let's go and talk about our hero talents. So let me see if I can find, here we go. All right, so hero talents. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to add 10 levels with the new expansion, but instead of adding more talent points to the talent tree, like adding new rows and stuff like that, they're instead going to create what they call hero talent trees. So hero talents, let's see if I can find the picture for it here. That's one of the pictures. Here we go. So hero talents look like this. You're going to have your druid, your class talents, and then your specialization talents. And then right in the middle, you're going to have a hero talent tree. And this hero talent tree it's got 10 skills in it, plus one that you get just for picking the tree. So it's got 11, but one of them you get automatically. You're going to get a point for this talent tree with every level after, like, with the new expansion. So you're going to get 10 points, which means you're going to fill out the entire tree. So by choosing this hero talent tree, you're going to get all the bonuses. Where that becomes a little bit interesting is there are going to be choice nodes along the way that you can kind of choose how to emphasize what you picked by picking this talent tree. But essentially, picking the talent tree kind of locks you into a particular play style. So they showed some examples of this, which we can see, I believe, over here. So for example, with the druid tree here, Keeper of the Grove, you can see by default you're going to get Harmony of the Grove, which increases what your treants can do when they're out. And then you're going to go along and you're going to be able to get a bunch of other talents that give you some passive bonuses and stuff like that. And then also on these choice nodes, again, like this is going to emphasize treants even harder. Whereas this goes, maybe don't put so much into treants. Let's put some into like your arcane spells, right? Alternative here, this one is for balance, and again it kind of shows you, like, by default you're going to get this passive, and then as you go along you're going to get more skills, including a capstone skill that's going to be a fairly big deal. So what do I think about these? Well, first off, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. So the first thing is they're basically designing a hero talent tree that is themed around each spec in the game. So for example, Keeper of the Grove is one that's going to be themed around the Resto Druid, whereas this one here, Elun's Chosen, is themed around the Balance Druid. However, the catch to that is each spec in the game can choose from two different ones, right? So I believe, like, Fury, Slayer is themed after Fury, Mountain Thane is themed after Protection, and Colossus is themed after Arms, right? So each hero talent spec themed around a normal baseline spec, but each specialization can choose between two heroic talent sets. So Protection can choose between Mountain Thane or Colossus. Arms can choose between Colossus or Slayer. Fury can choose between Mountain Thane and Slayer, right? So it may be I'm Fury and I want to be more Fury, so I, spec into Slayer, or I'm Fury and I want to be a little bit more tanky, have some more survivability, so I go Mountain Thane, right? That's kind of the general concept. With the Druid, so for example, the Balanced Druid gets to choose between Keeper of the Grove or a Loon's Chosen. So each spec can choose between two. That's something to really keep in mind there. So if we come back over here, this is the list of the hero specializations that they currently have planned. And I mean, you can kind of just look at these as like ascensions. They're like class ascensions. Like, congrats, you're a Death Knight. You're a Blood Death Knight. Now, do you want to be a Rider of the Apocalypse Blood Death Knight or a Sandlane Blood Death Knight? So thematically and everything, cool. I think mechanically the idea to have a separate 10-point talent tree is a good move on Blizzard's part. I think it solves a lot of issues that came about by just continually adding more rows to the talent tree. I like this a lot. I don't know what they're going to do for the expansion after this one. Like, do you get to pick 2 hero talent trees? Do they add 10 talents to that one? I don't know what they're going to do for that. But for the next upcoming expansion, I feel like hero talent trees are totally fine. I like the thematic aspect of it, of saying like, okay, well, I'm a fell-scarred demon hunter, or I'm a dark ranger hunter, or I'm a stormbringer shaman. Like that, thematically, cool. I like the fact that they didn't lock these into one per spec, and that spec can only go to that one. I like that you have a choice. Build variety is always good in my opinion. That being said, looking at the example talents and stuff that they've given, and they also showed a little example video where they kind of showed a warrior who was doing some moves, and then they were doing those moves as, I think, the Mountain Thane is what it was. Didn't look very impressive, in my opinion. Obviously, there's mechanical stuff going on there that we couldn't see. All you saw was the different visual effects, and I wasn't overly impressed. And even looking at these talent trees that they have here, I'm still not impressed. Not to say that these talents aren't good talents, but I think Keeper of the Grove sounds cool. Thematically, it's interesting. But Force of Nature, increasing the damage of your spells by 3%, is really boring. Even if it's good, it's really boring. And these are the kind of talents that I don't find interesting at all. Blizzard has done a good job, in my opinion, with the return to the talent tree system that we currently have. I definitely feel like it gives you a lot of choices and ways to create builds that really fit your playstyle. I'm a big fan of the new talent system that we got with Dragonflight. That said, I do think it still lacks a lot in terms of dynamically changing up the way that you play the game in a way that has to do with things beyond numbers and rotations, right? Like, I want visually cool stuff. Like, make my treants like fire treants or something, and then have them do something totally different. Like, don't increase the damage of my spells by 3% with my treants. Give me something drastically different, like more interesting. Now, I know that fire treants doesn't fit with Keeper of the Grove. I'm just using it as an example, right? Give me the option. You can have fire treants, or actually now, instead of summoning treants, you summon a giant swarm of ravenous flowers, right? That's like a Keeper of the Grove thing. So these talent points to me, good, bad, mechanically good, bad. I don't care. They're very boring and uninteresting to me, at least in terms of making me go, oh man, that seems really cool. Man, that's really going to make me feel like the Keeper of the Grove. Or that's going to make me feel like a Loon's Chosen. Like, no. And a lot of them are passive, which I don't mind, especially for like open world content. But so I'm pretty mid on these hero specs so far. I see some good, I see some bad, I see some boring. But again, they mentioned that this is one of the things that they are going to iterate on the most. They're going to iterate on the hardest. So I expect to see a lot of shakeups and a lot of change around these hero specs. So I'm just going to basically stay neutral on these for the time being. I think it's a step in the right direction, though, at least in terms of how to manage talent points and stuff in future expansions. But again, like I said, I don't know what they're going to do like for Midnight. What are they going to do for the Midnight expansion, right? Are they going to give you another hero spec? Are they going to give you 10 more points? You know, what are they going to do? Because that's one of the reasons we started getting these borrowed power systems. It's because they couldn't just keep adding on to the class fantasy over time, or balance and complexity gets way out of hand. So I don't know what they're going to do. We'll have to see. So that is essentially everything covered in the War Within, with the exception of Delves. And like I said, Delves was the thing I wanted to end this video on, because I think it is one of the biggest changes. So I want to recap real quick. Hero talents, mid, let's wait and see what happens with that. Cross-realm guilds, that's a good thing, but I want to see, you know, what additional steps do they take with cross-faction guilds. Again, coming back in here, we're going to talk about Delves. Dragon riding, again, in all zones. Dynamic flight being the default. Good. Absolutely positive change. Everything warbands, in my opinion. This solves 70% of the issues I have with the game. 70%. Mainly because of quality of life features, and then primarily because of reputation and renown grinds. That's the reputation and renown grinds make me want to stop playing the game every expansion. So this solves a lot. Plus, like I said, the warband bank, the convenience of the warbound items, the transmog updates, flight paths, all that kind of stuff, all just positive. All right, there's more Delve stuff, so we'll check that out. The Earth and Allied race, I don't care. I really don't care at all. 4 new zones. We'll take a quick look at these, so because we haven't looked at the visuals so far. So let's go to, we're going to start out in the Isle of Dorn. So the Isle of Dorn, I think, looks fine. Yeah, it's fine. It looks like a WoW zone. It's definitely got some dwarven architecture and stuff like that. No issues. No issues with it. Let's see. The next place that we're going to go to is going to be the Ringing Deeps. So again, the Ringing Deeps is kind of like the factory one. But again, they have these open spots where you can like see the sky. The outside world is out there. So you have this stuff here. Again, it looks fine. It looks like a WoW zone. I mean, I don't... It is what it is. The next zone that we get into is Hollowfall. Hollowfall, I actually think looks really cool. I like this zone a lot. I like the concept of the crystal. I like the architecture in the buildings. I like the faction that we get to meet here. I think it's called the Ardent Dawn or something like that. I can't really remember. You know, we got a little... kind of like some swamp stuff going on here, some very like Scarlet Crusade, but maybe not evil kind of architecture here. You know, this zone out of the 3 that we've looked at by far is my favorite. It's the one that I think looks the coolest for sure. And just thematically, it's very cool. It looks like something different. Yeah, it just looks different from a lot of WoW zones we've seen in the past. And then we have Aj-Kahet, right? Aj-Kahet, again, we're going deep dive under here. This looks kind of like a combination of like Silithus and, man, what was the green one from Shadowfall? Shadowfall. From Shadowlands. Oh, I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, it looks like a combination of all that. It's very like Westfall Plaguelands and stuff too. I think this is pretty cool, and I honestly We got a little bit of this in Wrath of the Lich King, and we got this in a couple places in some dungeons, and I don't feel like we've had this aesthetic for a while. Maybe we got a little bit. No, not really. Not in MOP. That was more bugs than anything. But yeah, I think this one looks pretty interesting too, and I have a tendency to like these kinds of zones as well. So I have a strong feeling that Aj-Kahet and Hallowfall are going to be the two zones that I really, really like. And I have no issues with Isle of Dorn or Ringing Deeps. I don't think they look like... I definitely don't think they look bad. But they definitely look a little more boring than the rest of them. So we talked about all this warband stuff. Talked about hero talents. All right, Earth and Allied Race. Okay. Anything we missed in here? Don't think so. Just some more pictures of, here for us. A couple different things. Zone flow, they talked about that a little bit. They talked about the dungeons. So again, 8 dungeons, 1 raid, blah, blah, blah. All right, so, okay, let's get into delves. So we did our recap there. You know the things that I'm kind of excited about and the things that I think solve a lot of the issues that I've had with the game so far. But this is the big one for me. And it's not even delves themselves, but we'll talk about delves as well. So what are delves? Delves are a new in-game pillar. Okay, what's an in-game pillar? An in-game pillar is a group of content that the devs consider to be the top tier content that you play as a means of gear progression and achievement once you're max level. So we have had, originally we had dungeons and raids. Well, we had dungeons, raids, and PvP. Okay, that evolved into dungeons, Mythic Plus, raids, and PvP. So, my frustration when I got to in-game as someone who, yeah, I'm playing a lot of alts and I want to play a lot of different characters and I go back through the leveling zones and everything again, and I have a lot of fun with that, is that at a certain point, I want to keep progressing. I want my character to keep getting stronger. I want to keep getting more gear. I want to be able to do the newer content and not feel like I'm waiting on catch-up systems to get me gear that I need, or that I'm struggle busting the entire time I'm trying to play through a new zone because of gear checks and requirements. And my problem with that is, like I mentioned earlier, I don't PvP. I don't want to really run dungeons over and over again anymore, especially not Mythic Plus ones where there's like all the modifiers and the timers and everything. There was a point in my life where that would have been absolutely my cup of tea, and I would have no-lifed that shit for years. It's not like that anymore. And I don't want to raid. Why? Because I just don't. I don't play WoW to play it around everyone else's schedule. That's really what it comes down to. I don't spend hours of my night multiple times a week trying to do the raids. I just don't. I don't even care about doing raid finder versions of raids. I just don't care about raids. So what happens to me when I beat the campaign? I just go, okay, well, I guess I'll play a different alt and I'll start grinding out world quests and stuff, and that's it. And every week there's this great vault, and I'm like, well, I'm not getting any of this gear because I don't want to do any of this content, and that makes me feel like I'm not a real WoW player. I can't keep up with people, and I'm not going to make myself play content that I don't want to play. So basically what I'm trying to say is there was no end game pillar for me in the eyes of Blizzard, which meant that I didn't get mythic quality gear, or I didn't get raid tier quality gear, or any of that kind of stuff. I just kind of got to the end game and was doing the dailies and weeklies and stuff for the outdoor content, and then maybe I'd go do some legacy raids, or I'd play an alt, which again came with all those issues that we mentioned before. So delves are a new in-game pillar for outdoor PvE content, which is exactly the shit I like to do. Exactly the way I like to play the game. Exactly. It's what I want. This is the in-game pillar for me. The type of player I am, for the type of content I like to play, for the type of content that I like to make videos and guides for. This is it. Delves. So what happens in these delves? Well, in these delves, basically you go out into the open world and you'll see like a foggy door, right? And you walk through the foggy door. There's no load screens or anything like that. And then you go in and you experience outdoor open world content, except in like a cave or a building or something like that. And the emphasis here on delves is that it's not about beating a boss, and then the big boss, like in a dungeon. There's going to be exploration aspects to them. You may have to solve puzzles, which I hate puzzles, so that's not great, but I'll take it. You might have to solve puzzles. You may have to fight a boss or lieutenant or something here or there. You're definitely going to fight enemies along the way. There could be interesting mechanics. They talked about a mechanic where you basically have this artifact that puts a light area around you so you can travel, but the fuel starts to run out, and so you fight kobolds that have candles. You feed the candles to the artifact, and that keeps your light bubble around you so that you can keep moving, which sounds a lot like Delve from Path of Exile, but that's totally fine. So there's these different mechanics that aren't built around the idea of you're going in with a 5-man team, you're going to kill trash, kill a boss, kill trash, kill a boss, kill trash, kill a boss, boom, collect your loot and go, right? So they can do all these different things, and you can go into them with 1 to 5 players. I believe it's 1 to 5. We'll check here. 1 to 4. 1 to 4 players, and they're role agnostic, meaning you can complete them with any specialization. You don't have to worry about having a tank or a healer, and that's another way that they're different from dungeons, right? So you can just go, hey, friends, oh, we're all on our healers today? Let's go into the delve anyway and figure it out. So that's kind of what you do there. And then delves are going to be part of seasonal content, just like all the other in-game pillar content in the game. So you can get season rewards like mounts, pets, achievements, all that kind of stuff. And then you're also going to get a seasonal NPC that helps with your endeavors. And basically, this is just like a bot character, essentially. The first one is going to be Bran's Bronzebeard, but what they're talking about is basically you can get equipment for Bran. You can spec Bran out so that if you're a healer, maybe he does some DPS for you, or if you're a DPS, he could be a tank or he could be a healer for you. So essentially he can complement your play style. So if you can shore up like a weak area. So if you go in solo and you're like, man, it'd be nice to have someone to tank a little bit, you can spec Bran Bronzebeard into being like a tank style character. So that character will change throughout the seasons, which is exciting. It gives you something new. And again, you know, it's just that in-game pillar where if there are these seasonal rewards and fun things to do as a outdoor open world content PvE player, you just didn't have this. And then there's a massive haul of treasures at the end of each vault, at the end of each delve. And you may have to complete different objectives in order to open those. And they showed some pictures of these. Let me see if I can find a couple of them. I don't see them, but basically at the end, there's going to be a bunch of treasure chests, and they're going to be small ones that you can just open right away. And then there are going to be these larger ones that you can open, but to open them, you have to have keys. You get those keys from doing other types of open world content, and they're, you know, kind of limited. So you kind of pick and choose where you want to use those keys at. So again, you're out there doing world quests, weeklies, etc. You get these keys, you go into delves, you play this role agnostic content that you can play with 1 to 4 players plus Bran coming along for the run. And then you get to do this stuff that's not like a dungeon. It's not like a raid. You're still going to fight stuff because that is kind of what open world content's about as well, is going around fighting enemies and everything. And then at the end, you get gear and you get resources and things like that. And you can take some of those keys you earned and use them on some of those chests if you want. So absolutely great. But there's more. And this is where I think this is a big deal. Like, all of this is a big deal already. Mostly, they could have added delves, right? And it would have just been a different type of content. They said they learned a lot from things like Torghast, Island Expeditions, Horrific Visions, and even some of the stuff they're doing in Dragonflight as well. And so all that would have been great. But delves are evergreen content. They're a new in-game pillar. What makes them a big deal to me is the seasonal content, because they're going to be continually updated. And now, if that's the type of content you like to do, you're included with everybody else. But this is the thing. This is the thing that is the like cherry on top that really seals it for me. The Great Vault is being reworked. So first off, PvE is out of here, right? PvE players are going to earn more conquests. They're going to be able to spend that conquest deterministically to get their gear and gear up that way, so that they don't have to make the decision between PvP gear and PvE gear. If they only play PvP, then they just get conquest and they buy their gear. If they do a little bit of both, then what they do for PvE will still allow them to get a reward from the Great Vault. But here's the thing. Raids. Defeat 3 bosses. Defeat 5. Defeat 7. I never wanted to do this, right? Because I don't want to go raid. Dungeons. Complete 1 heroic, mythic, or time-walking dungeon. I don't know if this is the same as it is now, but, you know. Either way, again, not my cup of tea. They're adding this new row. World. And it says complete 1 delve or world activity. Complete 4, complete 9. Now, obviously, this is all subject to change. It's subject to tuning and all that kind of good stuff. But this makes it so that if you are an outdoor content, open world PvP player, you now have a way to get stuff from the Great Vault. And again, this was another area where, as someone who's literally been making content for WoW, who has been, you know, recognized by Blizzard, promoted by Blizzard occasionally, all that kind of good stuff. You know, not the biggest content creator, not the most proactive one or active one or anything like that, but I've got hundreds of videos on World of Warcraft. To be at that level of investment in the game and then get to the end game, finish the campaign, all that kind of good stuff, and just go, is there content I could do? Sure. But is there content for me and the way I like to play? No, there's not. To have that in the Great Vault is awesome. Because literally since the Great Vault has come out, I don't know if I've claimed a thing out of this Great Vault even one time. Whether I earned it or not. I don't think I've gone to the Great Vault and claimed anything out of this ever. Because I didn't care. I didn't PvP. I didn't raid. I didn't want to run dungeons. Even if I ran dungeons, I didn't care enough to go back to the Great Vault. It felt bad because I knew like I was never getting tier 3, right? I was never going to get tier 3 because I'm just not going to invest that much into the content that I don't want to play. But now, open world, 9 delves, sure, why not? That's me. That's my content. If you look at my guides, every guide that I create, like I go, hey, here's the PvE open world build. This is the build that's going to make you rock doing world quests and daily quests. And now I'm looking at this and it's just shaking everything up for me. So I think delves are a fantastic addition. Whether or not they turn out to be awesome the first go around, I don't care. It's the fact that Blizzard has said, we're going to add a open world PvE in-game pillar. And not only that, we're going to put it on the same level in the same tier as dungeons and raids and PvP. That's huge. That is huge for me. And this is the other 20%. This is the other 20% of, you know, what I am frustrated with in the current game and what gets me to quit every single time. I quit because I don't want to grind rep. I quit because there's nothing for me after I finish the campaign besides just rep grinding, which I hate, and daily quests and weekly quests. right? And, you know, and I quit because of the quality of life issues that are just frustrating if you play a lot of alts, like trying to go collect transmog and, you know, all that kind of good stuff. So between Delves and between the warband system, they are kind of covering like everything, almost everything. So I say there's like a 10% that they haven't really covered for me. And I want to make sure I kind of like touch on what that stuff is. I want to find that the warbands again here because I want to bring this up in the recap. So what's the 10% that's left, right? What's the 10% that I'm still just kind of like, you know, that could be better. So cross-faction guilds, I want to see those just make cross-faction, just remove all the barriers, okay? You can raid cross-faction, you can do world quest, you can do quest progression. I don't care. Like, I do understand that there are some quest lines that are different, whether you're playing Horde or Alliance and that kind of stuff. So maybe, you know, there'll be a little bit of friction there where you can say, okay, you know, this particular content is locked Horde and Alliance because there's a different perspective, a different outcome. But in general, I just let us play with our friends, no matter what faction they're on. That's a big thing for me. Let us be in a guild, do all the guild stuff. Let us play together, do all the stuff, regardless of faction. It's fine. I'm okay if there's still like some spaces where it's Horde versus Alliance and everything. But in general, like, just make the world quests faction agnostic, right? The dailies and the weeklies and stuff, just make them faction agnostic. Tie them to the, you know, reputations out in the world and let us do them together. No issues, no problems, you know, no competition, no friction. So that's a part of that 10% for me. Another part of that 10% is, again, like, I like the direction that they're headed with the hero talent system, but it's not 100% there for me. I think that they could still do a lot in terms of class fantasy beyond just adding in like passives and stuff. I think they have a lot of creative room to grow in terms of class fantasy through gameplay. It's not terrible. It's definitely not terrible, but I want more. And then also, I think the kind of last big thing for me, at least that I can think of right now, there's probably something to do with crafting. But the main thing I can think about now is, again, I've said it before, I'm someone who really enjoyed the garrison system. I just did. And I still want to see something equivalent to that, whether it's player housing, guild housing, you know, something along those lines. I would still like to see something like that in the game. That's another like kind of area that I think I would heavily invest my time in, and it doesn't exist yet. Oh, and the other thing is something like Torghast. I've mentioned this before. It kind of goes hand in hand with that getting creative with the ability stuff. I'm okay if you keep things boring in the dungeons, raids, open world, all that kind of stuff. But I still want there to be something that's like Torghast in the sense of you can go in, and as you progress through, you get to do all kinds of crazy stuff that your character would never be able to do. And to me, that's a huge missed opportunity right now that I think that would be a heck of a lot of fun. It doesn't have to be Torghast. It doesn't have to be Island Expeditions, but I liked both of those for different reasons. And I just want something that kind of lets you really go on like a power trip, go really heavy into the power fantasy of being like the heroic champion of Azeroth that they always tell you that you are. You know, like, why can't I thunderclap an entire island? Like, how cool would that be? Just stuff like that, where it's like, let's get really ridiculous somewhere in some type of content and just make it fun. Like, let loose, Blizzard. Like, just make an area and make it fun. So that's kind of like the 10% for me. So what I wanted to talk about, just to finish this stream out here, is I wanted to talk about how warbands and also how delves change my perspective, not just as a player, but as a content creator. So I want to pull up real quick my my YouTube here, and I kind of want to end on this. Let's see, view your channel. There we go. All right, so I have 349 videos those are all World of Warcraft. For the most part, the ones that are shown, I went through and I just kind of hid most of the rest of them. And if I haven't, then I'm going to finish hiding the rest of them. So from the get-go, when I started making videos on this channel, I was making them to help people with builds to level characters. And inherently, for the most part, leveling characters is about doing quests. It's about open world content. It's about PvE content. That's what I enjoy playing. And so every time as a player and a content creator that I get through the campaign of a WoW expansion, I get a little bit further. I push as far as I can. And then I get frustrated with all the things that I just mentioned. And I felt like there is no space for me to be the expert or to be a voice for anything other than leveling builds. Because I'm not going to Mythic Dungeon, I'm not going to raid, I'm not going to PvP. So where's the opportunity for me to showcase my knowledge, showcase my skill, and try to present that to other people and help them out? It doesn't exist. It hasn't existed. Like, what am I going to do? Hey guys, here's how you do this weekly quest. Here's how you do this daily quest. Hasn't existed. And on top of that, the stuff that I could do wasn't rewarding. And it didn't feel like it was a space that Blizzard acknowledged or a player group that Blizzard acknowledged existed and wanted to support. So again, like, that led to me as a content creator and as a player just getting really frustrated. And just being like, what is the point? What is the point? Everything that they've talked about in the War Within changes that. So far, from what I can see, it changes that. Because I look at this and I'm like, cool. I can still do leveling builds, open world, outdoor content builds. But now there's a space for me because there are delves. Right? And one of the big things for me is making builds for every spec, for every class. They're adding heroic talents. So now there's a build for every spec, every class, with each of the two heroic talents that you can be. So we're like, okay, so this is the build for the balanced druid with the Elune hero talent system, and this is the one for the balanced druid with the keeper of the grove talent tree. So there's more like build possibilities, more builds to cover, right? But on top of that, now it's like, hey, not only am I going to be able to help you like with a build that's going to let you level, but once you get to the top, once you beat the campaign, once you're maxed out, once you're doing delves as in-game content, that's where I'm at. That's my content. That's what I do. That's what I can be the expert at. That's what I can share with people. That's where I can showcase, my almost 20 years of playing World of Warcraft. And that's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. It's the thing that people who are PvPers or Mythic Dungeon people or raiders have had this whole time. Whereas a content creator, they're like, oh yeah, I'll here's my leveling build that I just throw out there, and it's based off of whatever I normally do as content, raiding, dungeon, etc. And then when I get to end game, then I start making content for the dungeons. Oh, here's the best dungeon build on Holy Paladin, or here's how you beat this dungeon, or here's tips and tricks for this dungeon, or here's, how do you fight this raid boss, or best compositions for PvP. And they just have all this stuff. And I just get to the end and I'm like, well, the end. And now it's like, okay, I can get to the end and I can go, here's the best delve build, right, for a Mountain Thane protection warrior. Here's the best delve build for a Stormbringer Elemental Shaman. And then, oh, how do you beat this delve? Tips and tricks for this delve. If you get this variation for this delve, this is what you do. And the whole thing is open world content. And not only that, 1 to 4 players. Dude, we're talking about like solo delve content, like best solo Mountain Thane protection build. Are you kidding me? Like, the videos make themselves. The content makes itself. And not only that, like, I'm really excited about it. Not just because it's new WoW, but because of all this stuff that I've talked about here. Because honestly, the 8 dungeons, 4 zones, 1 raid, new WoW story, that does nothing. It does nothing. If that's what they would have showed, if they would have showed that and then showed a couple other systems like the heroic talent system, you know, and been like, dynamic flight is everywhere now, I would have said, I don't care. Great, keep it. I'm not coming back for this expansion. That's probably where I would have been at. But I sat there watching that deep dive, and I was just like, it's W after W after W after W. This fixes this. This fixes this. This fixes this. And I know I'm in a state right now where I'm just kind of like rambling on about this, but it's a weird thing to think about. As someone who's invested so much into World of Warcraft, it's a weird thing to think about, to be like, especially from the struggles I've had as a content creator since Battle for Azeroth when I started, and looking back at the reasons why I quit every time. It's a weird thing to think about, to go, I don't have to do that. I wouldn't have to do that because there's a space for me. Now, delves could absolutely suck, and then that would be a problem because, you know, content that's made for a player like me that's not good content still sucks, right? So that's always a possibility. But that being said, this is a big deal. The delves and the warbands are a huge deal for me. So yeah, that's really all I have. I saw a couple people were watching. Nobody was chatting. That's totally fine. This is going to be on the channel as a VOD. You guys let me know in the comment section below. You know, any opinions you have on the War Within, any opinions you have on the stuff that I talked about, me, my channel, whatever, good, bad, I don't care. I just made this video because I feel like there's a lot of you that have watched my channel that are probably really excited about this stuff too, and are maybe curious about what I had to say about it and whether or not I think it fixes a lot of the issues, and really speaks to the kinds of players that we are. And so let me know what your thoughts are. And yeah, this doesn't mean I'm back. It doesn't mean I'm making WoW content or anything like that here. None of this stuff really happens until the War Within. So I don't want to be like, I'm back and I'm making content. No, I'm excited for what the War Within has coming. And I think there's potential there for me to find a place to maybe make some content again. But we're like a year away. We're like a year away from that expansion coming out. And honestly, there's like still nothing compelling about Dragonflight that makes me want to play. So it is what it is. I've been really active on the Pixel Pathfinder, which you can look up on YouTube if you want. That's my other channel for playing indie games and stuff like that. So you're welcome to come over there and check out content and support if you like hanging out with me or like that kind of content. And then we'll see. I'll keep checking in on the WoW news, and if there's stuff that I think it's interesting enough to talk about, then I will do that. And yeah, we'll just kind of see how it goes. You know, maybe the beta will start summer. I'll probably keep an eye on things and maybe pick up that Epic. Is it Epic? Epic Edition pre-order or whatever it is. Epic. We'll see. We'll see if I get beta access and stuff like that. If I do, then I probably would be checking out delves and stuff like that. Maybe that would lead to some more content, but we're talking 5, 6, 7 months from now. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching if you did watch, and